I felt it whoosh by me. The tree behind me made a tearing noise as I saw what almost hit me. I was 16 when this happened. I was working part-time as a babysitter in my small rural town in the deep south. It was when I was confronted by what I could only describe as pure evil. I lost a lot of faith in humanity then, and that has not really changed over time. It was during the school break 10 years ago. I was invited to the sprawling house of one of the richer families in my neighborhood. The parents, Linda and Aaron, were a very warm, welcoming couple who made me feel very comfortable in their home. My job was pretty straightforward, or so I thought. Gabe, who was 11 at the time, and Kay, who was 8. When I first met them, they were very polite, and Kay in particular was very open to speaking to me. She immediately said that my hair looked really cute, like one of her dolls, and we became friends right away. Gabe, on the other hand, was also cute as a button, but had this rather distant sort of empty stare. I guess he was more reserved and just wanted to get to know me first before trusting me. That's fine, I'm used to that. It actually started pretty well. The first few weeks were pretty uneventful. We would go out to the huge garden. They would play tag. Gabe would then play football while I sat with Kay on our afternoon tea party. Then at night, I would bring them up the stairs, tuck them into bed, and that was it. I was done for the night until their parents came back home. Standard stuff. Until we get to the third week of me taking care of them. I was downstairs watching TV, waiting for the parents, assuming that the two kids were asleep. I myself was starting to get really sleepy, but something would wake me up. A loud shriek from Kay's room. I went up to see her on the floor, in tears. "He cut my hair!" she was screaming. Indeed, the right side of her hair was suddenly shorter than the left side. I lifted the carpet and saw that there was hair under there, neatly hidden away. I rushed to Gabe's room and asked him what was going on. He pretended to be asleep. I shouted, and he finally turned and looked at me. I asked him why he cut her hair, and he replied that he didn't do anything, and he was fast asleep. I could tell he was lying, and so I called him out on it and ordered him to tell the truth. Then, suddenly his expression went blank. He just looked at me and said he didn't do it. And if he did, it's not like I can do anything about it. I have met a lot of misbehaving kids in the past. They are manageable. It's kinda normal for kids to act up. However, this felt different. There is a callousness to his words that made me a bit scared. I immediately told the parents about their son's atrocious behavior. I told them how upset their daughter was. I fully expected them to be angry and discipline their son, but their reaction, while calm and polite, was scarier than their kid's outburst. They said that it was probably Kay who did it to herself to get attention. Their little boy is an angel and would never do such a thing. I really questioned their logic. Why would Kay try to get attention while she was sleeping? They told me off and reminded me that it's my job to babysit and not to discipline. This level of denial was baffling, and I considered quitting, but I felt bad for Kay and decided that I will stay. The next 2 weeks were uneventful, but it all came to a head one Wednesday afternoon. Kay got sleepy after our elaborate tea party and fell asleep in the couch. Gabe was playing in the garden, and I went to check on him. What I saw, I will never forget. He had built a small stone structure. It was really nice, like a small well on the ground. Then, I noticed there was a smoke coming out of it. I looked inside the well, and there was a little frog burning inside. He threw alcohol on the poor frog and burned it alive. I stood up slowly, horrified and saddened by what I saw. Then, I felt it whoosh by me. The tree behind me made a tearing noise as I saw what almost hit me. It was a crossbow arrow. I looked up, and it was Gabe. He held a small crossbow in his hand, a real one that his dad locked up in his room. He was grinning at me, a nasty, evil grin. I shouted his name angrily and told him to stop. His blank, grinning expression suddenly changed, and he pretended to be apologetic, faking crying and saying sorry. He said he didn't see me there. This little turd almost killed me, and so I called his parents to tell them what was happening. Once again, these people, they just brushed it off. Boys will be boys, they said. They said they would give me an additional pay that day. They called it hazard pay. I did not work as a babysitter to get hazard pay. I quit then and there. The parents got mad at me at first, but then the mom begged me to at least finish my shift until that night. Fine, but I said the next day, I am gone, and if I were them, while the kid is still young, get him into therapy, because there are serious behavioral problems. They said that I have no right to tell them how to raise their kid, and were upset that I would judge their kid's mental state so harshly. I pointed out that he cut his sister's hair, is torturing and killing animals, and nearly killed me. That's like a red flag parade right there. Instead of acknowledging that I had a point, they just reiterated that I can finish the night, get my bonus, and don't ever need to speak to them again. Fine. That night, I was always on the edge. I don't know what else this kid would do. I told Kay secretly that if anything happens, she should just call out to me. I made sure to hide the crossbow in the attic so that Gabe wouldn't find it. I sat on the sofa, anxiously waiting for the parents to arrive. Then, I heard Kay scream again. I ran and saw her tumbling down the stairs like she had just been thrown down. I looked up. There was Gabe, crossbow in hand, another one that his dad owned that I didn't know existed back then. He was pointing it straight at my head. He was grinning with a blank expression. Then, he turned the crossbow, facing the direction of his sister. I was telling him to put it down. He asked me why. What am I going to do about it? I was staring down this crossbow, aimed at poor Kay, who was hysterically crying. Then, we hear the lock on the door open. The parents walk in, and Gabe threw the crossbow at me. I had to catch it. And that's what the parents see. Me, holding the crossbow. Kay crying and the little turd also crying. He ran to his parents, saying they thought there was an intruder. In his story, we heard someone outside. He said I got the crossbow and was trying to protect them. Kay accidentally fell, trying to hide from what we thought was a burglar. That he was so thankful for me, for being there to protect them. The lying came so naturally. It was so frightening. I was just left speechless. I truly believe that then and there, I witnessed a sociopath at work. The parents hugged me and thanked me, and asked me if I wanted to keep my job. Hell no. I got my money and walked out of there. These people are in denial that their kid is a manipulative, evil person. As I was on the door ready to leave, Kay ran out to me and hugged me. She asked me not to go. Gabe did the same, but I refused to come near him. I wish the story ended there, but sadly, actions have consequences. Kay got in touch with me years later. As early as she could, she fled the family. She went and had absolutely no contact and started a new life after graduation. Turns out, this was the best decision. she has ever made in her life. That summer, I read the news about my old town. The house I babysat burned down. The mother, the father, and Gabe died tragically in a house fire. Immediately, I know this was not accidental. Like the little frog, he was responsible. A few months later, after the investigation, it was revealed that the burnt bodies of the parents had wounds consistent with a crossbow attack. I felt guilty that I wasn't able to do more. I really felt that if the kid got help earlier, something could have been done. If the behavior was not tolerated, maybe it could have changed things. But denial is a powerful thing, and monsters are good at manipulating and hiding. Sometimes, they hide in a cute angelic face of a child. People can be really dangerous, creepy, and strange. And when you are a young woman and your instincts tell you that something is off, please listen to your gut instincts. This is what I discovered in the scariest possible way when I was 18. My name is Candace, and I took a gap year before heading off to uni. I went back to my hometown to take care of my mom, who at that point had a work-related injury and so had to stay at home. Only my dad was working at that time. To supplement our income, I had myself looking for a nice babysitting gig. I had pretty good credentials and reviews as a freelance babysitter in the Bay Area. I've worked since I was 16. I've worked with some high-end families, some upper-middle-class kids too. I've had nothing but great experiences and memories. Some of those families are still my friends now, but not Patrick. Patrick saw my profile online and wanted me to come over and take care of his son, Patty. I assumed the boy was named the same because he's a junior Patrick. Fair enough. He said the gig would only be on the weekend since that's the only time, in his words, Patty shows up in his house. This was a strange way of saying it, but I guess what I assumed was that he has a divorce and his boy only comes on the weekend for his visitation. There were no red flags at that point, and I'm not gonna lie, the pay per hour was significantly better than any other job requests in the area. I was definitely in. I drove to Patrick's house that Thursday morning. It was in a well-off suburb, just 30 minutes away from me. The lawn looked really unkempt. Tall grasses and lawn ornaments ominously strewn all around the front yard. Don't they have a homeowners association here? I asked myself. This looked really ugly and disheveled. A stocky man who looked to be in his mid-50s opened the door. Immediately I was welcomed by the putrid stench of the house. This was very strange for the neighborhood, which seemed really nice. Anyway, who am I to judge? I'm used to slobs. My roommate back in college was too. So I happily went in. The house was messy and unremarkable. Patrick started really warmly. He greeted me and asked if I want anything to drink. I said water was fine, but I could get it myself. He held my knee and told me that I shouldn't worry and he will get it. That sudden physical contact kinda took me by surprise. It wasn't creepy yet. It was just surprising. Maybe he's just a naturally touchy person. I looked around the house. I immediately noticed one obvious detail. There were no pictures of his family. Instead, the walls were adorned with the heads of deer, moose, and other animals that I assumed he hunted. As an animal lover, this kinda creeped me out, but hey, I don't really want to judge. The thing that really freaked me out were the taxidermied animals on his fireplace. There was a creepy taxidermy monkey whose neck and head are only loosely connected by wire. I tried not to look at it. What was really bothering me was that, for a supposedly loving dad, he has zero pictures of Patrick Jr. Every one of the dozens of families I've ever worked with had pictures of their kids adorning the walls, refrigerators, and living room. These were major red flags for me. I shouldn't have ignored them. He came back with the water, and he started interviewing me. He seemed really impressed by my experience as a babysitter. He asked if I ever changed diapers. Yes, of course. Have I ever fed a child with a bottle on my lap while he's trying to sleep? Yes. That is part of the job, especially with really young kids. Have I ever breastfed? I'm sorry, what? My eyes widened at the question. I was a babysitter, not a wet nurse. Creepy question, honestly. He got really defensive at this, saying it was just a question. I was honestly ready to leave at that point. But I reminded myself that he's paying above everyone else. Then, suddenly like a switch, he turned nice again and apologized if he offended me. I said it was fine. We agreed on all the terms. He brought out a contract. This included a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA as we call it. Anything that happens in my line of work cannot be discussed with anyone. This is not the first time I've had to sign this kind of agreement, but usually it's for the more well-off and famous families who I'm sure you have heard of. But this guy is paying even more than them, so I signed anyway. Saturday rolls around and it was time for me to finally meet little Patrick Jr. In my mind, I was hoping that he was nothing like his honestly creepy dad. I take the key from a small hanging potted plant. As I enter the door, I get a message on my phone saying that he left Patty sleeping in his room while his dad is gone. To me, this was not a wise parenting decision, because if there was any emergency, there should be an adult in the house. I immediately rushed up the stairs and saw a room with a door covered in stickers that little boys love. I slowly opened the door. The room itself was really designed for an infant. Relaxing music, glow-in-the-dark star stickers, but there was something very weird here. The crib was unusually large. I carefully walked towards this giant crib and looked inside. What I saw totally shocked me. Patty was there all right, but he was no junior. This was Mr. Patrick, lying there in the bed, wearing only adult diapers with a freaky pacifier on his mouth. He started talking to me in baby talk. I just couldn't stand it. He cried like a baby. I will never forget the sight of a grown man acting like a child, begging me to change his diaper and feed him. He asked me to feed him because he was hungry and to change his diaper because he was dirty. Oh, hell no. I told him I'm getting out. He said I was being rude and judgmental. I told him straight up, I don't judge people by whatever fetish or fun they have on their own, but I did not agree to this. He insisted I did, trying to gaslight me. No way. He then called me mommy. That was it. I was done. I walked out of the room, rushing down the stairs. Suddenly, I was jerked back. He pulled my hair from behind, and we both fell to the ground. He was shouting curses at me, hurling insults, dragging me by my shirt. He said I was paid already, and we had a contract, as he's trying to drag me back into the room. I bit his hand. He recoiled in pain as I tore off a piece of his skin and quickly crawled down the stairs. My mouth now has the metal taste of this disturbing man's blood. I ran and ran, to no particular direction. I looked back at the house. I don't think he went out. After all, he was in diapers, but I saw him, hiding behind the curtain of his house like the creep he was. I had considered whether to file charges against him, but I was worried about whatever it was I signed. I didn't have the money for lawyers. Instead, I just filed a restraining order and blocked him from all social media, changed my numbers, and hoped for the best. Every once in a while, I would get a random threatening email calling me the B word and the other insults he hurled at me. No matter how many times I changed my account, he manages to find me. I never felt safe until I moved hundreds of miles away to college, where I am now. There is another case like mine, where a dad murdered his son after he found his diaper pictures. It brought me to tears when I read this, and so I had to tell my story. The money really blinded me to the many red flags during our first encounter. I hope this becomes a cautionary tale for anyone who will be working in another person's house. Follow your instincts, even if it means losing some money. The nightmare isn't worth it.